This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
This is the Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. It is Wednesday, February 28th, and it is 6:04 p.m. Oh, here comes Jess. Okay, so yes, now you can repeat what you were just saying. I'm sorry, Donna.
Yeah, so I was at the city council meeting last week when folks were talking about the town lodging and the project of the town lodging. And because I'm not a long-time Easthampton resident, I wanted to actually see the property. I know we had seen some pictures. But I went over to the property. I did not go on the property because it is posted. And I had heard a number of residents talking at the city council meeting. But while I was there, a neighbor came out. I think her name was Liz Coco. She lives directly across the street, and she's been in that neighborhood and across the street for a long time. And so we had a nice chat. She was very nice. I asked her questions and she was very forthcoming. But there were a couple of things that I think came out of my conversation with her that were kind of my summations of kind of what she was saying. And one thing I think was clear both from the meeting when people were talking about affordable housing and the comments that they were making about the type of people who would be there, the kind of problems that affordable housing would bring. I think there's a little bit of a disconnect between what people think affordable housing is and what it actually is. So, while I was talking with Liz, I said, affordable housing just means that it's housing that you can afford. It's not low income housing. And I think that people have some perceptions and biases with respect to low-income housing that are being transposed onto the concept of affordable housing. So I think that there's an opportunity there for us or others to, really talk about what does it mean? What is affordable housing? What does that mean in terms of people being able to live and apply a reasonable amount of their income to be able to have secure and safe housing. She talked about how she was very proud of the town lodging and what they had done for residents of Easthampton who were unhoused and how important that was in the early stages. But she also talked about how there was this sense of mismanagement and that the mismanagement led to, a lot of issues and problems. And again, I think that that's transposing those problems that she saw that were related to kind of what sounded like low income housing onto what is actually affordable housing, which I think might be a little bit different. So again, I think some education in that area might be important. The other thing that she talked about, which I thought was...
Can I just clarify though, quick, Donna, for you? Because I just want to make sure that we're on the same page because affordable, capital A affordable housing, which is what's proposed at town lodging is, I think what you're referring to as low income housing. So it's deed restricted. You need to be income eligible to live there. The rent will be set at either a portion of your income and or set by the state and federal guidelines of what you can charge for the rent. So it's not just of housing that is affordable. It's actually capital A affordable housing. So it's, meets all the state and federal guidelines for that definition. So I'm not sure what you mean by low income housing, but it's actually kind of the same thing, I think.
Well, I think that when people think of it and when they're confusing it with low income housing, I think that they're talking about vouchers and that kind
but that's
of
also what we're talking about. That vouchers could be at town lodging. So so it's low income housing. And I mean, it's housing that could be subsidized. It could be, it's similar to Easthampton public housing units. Those are also what we call capital A affordable, not just inexpensive, but have guidelines and rules about, what the rents are set at, income eligibility for residents.
Yeah. So again, I think, even just, where you're pointing out to me how my understanding might be incorrect. And, that might be an area that
I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, and the other issue that came up for her, that also came up at the city council meeting, was the question of parking and transportation. And so I think that's a valid issue. Like, she was talking about 30, she said, 30 units, that's 60 cars. Where are those 60 cars going to go? So I don't know if that is what, I don't know if that will be what it is, but I think that's something that probably needs to be addressed, either, in terms of what public transportation is going to be available, or where the parking is going to be available. And I think that those issues, if those issues can be addressed, then, she was positive in other respects about having this.
Okay.
So that's just wanted to let people know that I had that conversation.
Yeah, thank you. I saw Jamie's hand and Jess's hand.
I'll defer to Jessica.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So I just want to respond. I'm here to respond to any questions that the partnership might have today. I'm Donna. If you don't know who I am, I'm Jessica Allen. I'm with Valley CDC. So I've been the project manager that has been in discussions with the city for several years now on this property. So I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody has. I wish that I had been at city council meeting to have answered a lot of questions. I wasn't aware that the meeting was happening. I think we could have addressed a lot of things right then and there, but nonetheless. So in terms of parking and transportation, we really only look at sites that have access to public transportation. We don't even look at a site unless it does. So this site is already part of the Nashwanik Express route. Right now it is on-demand service, quote unquote. But the idea is, when we know who to talk to at PVTA, and with the city's support, you can extend that service. So it's already on the line. It's just a matter of making it more regular service. In terms of the parking component, I will note that in our current property at East Gables, which is in Amherst, which is 28 studio apartments, enhanced SROs. So there are smaller 260 square foot apartments with kitchenettes and bathrooms. We have 28 tenants. There's only one person per apartment. We have 17 parking spaces, and we have 9 people with cars. So the population of these developments typically don't own cars. And we have data collected over time that shows that per unit, there's probably a half a car that actually is parked in these developments. So just wanted to give some data and provide you with some information that when you are talking to people, just to understand that most of the tenant population here don't actually own cars. They tend to rely on transportation service, and transportation service already serves this site. So just wanted to give that bit of info.
Thank you.
Amy, I think you had your hand up too. Were you going to say the same thing?
Yeah, I was probably going to say about the same thing. And I guess this is to support the pre-development work for the town lodging house, the existing building. The new building wouldn't come into the picture until after archaeological work is done and gets approved by Mass Historic. So, I think it's a little bit unfortunate that there was no one there to speak to the project. So I apologize for being on vacation when that happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just from sitting on council, I think I think the conversation got derailed from what the appropriation was, and so it turned into a much larger conversation that it would have been great if you had been there, but you shouldn't have had to have been there for what we were discussing, right? And so I think it was just it turned into something that steered so far away from the appropriation, and we had to kind of reel everybody back in to actually focus on what we were actually talking about there. And so I think there was a lot of emotion, but certainly I hope in the future when this comes up and we are talking about specifically what the project is going to look like, right, then that will be the more, not appropriate, but a better time to be able to actually talk about all the things, because I do think it got derailed somewhat. So I just want to acknowledge that. So Benjamin, you had your hand up?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Sorry, I'm settled now. I guess one question I had is I listened to the recording of the council meeting, so I just brought up to speed on that. And so I understand and I agree with what Councillor Denham said. It did get a little bit off topic about the specific appropriation, but it was a really interesting conversation, and I think it highlights what the neighbors will and the community, will come out and say as the project develops. One question I had is just to clarify. So the council meeting was about a CPA grant for $100,000, and now I heard the description that Councillor Peak described, what it was exactly for, and now we're talking about block grant, correct? So I just wanted to clarify what the block grant was for, and then secondly, kind of along those lines, I know sometimes CPA and CDBG grants come with like certain restrictions, like if you use money for this purpose, then you're locked into a project having affordable housing or something. And I think part of the council meeting was, we were they were talking as if there's still going to be flexibility. So I was just wondering in terms of, what are these two grants for, and then what is, I guess, what are the restrictions involved?
Yeah. So the town lodging house has a permanent historic preservation restriction on the building and the grounds, a permanent agricultural restriction on the 54 acres of agricultural land, and a 30-year affordable housing restriction that's expiring somewhere around 2031 for 23 units of single room occupancy affordable housing. The CPA grant was for support of affordable housing and did not have any real property interest. So there was no purchase of anything of real property. So it doesn't extend the affordable housing restriction in any way. It is pre-development. It was for the pre-development activities to create more affordable housing. When we work with the state on this, they will, because we're applying for housing funds, there will be additional affordable housing restrictions that get added to this, before the 2031 expiration of the existing housing restrictions. So the flexibility that councilors were talking about was in regards to the $100,000 for the archaeological dig, is that if the archaeological investigation finds something that is, if there are human remains in the ground there, or significant historical objects, or let's say Native American artifacts or things like this, that we won't disturb them. We have to leave them, and we're not locked into something next with that funding. I mean, this is really an investigation to find out if we can go forward. So the block grant funds, though, are for the existing unit, the existing building. Jessica, something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just think it's important to note for everybody here that there was already an archaeological site evaluation that was done by an archaeological consultant that did a visual assessment. And what he essentially was looking for were indicators within the soils, how the soil was bumping, on whether he believed there were human remains there. So his initial report indicated he does not believe so because the soil was not showing as such. And then also in terms of the Native American, his report also indicated that it's not close enough to a waterway to have likely remains of Native American artifacts. So again, I'm just wanting to make sure that everybody's got the accurate information moving forward as you're in discussions with people. And all of this work was completed under our CPA grant, and the planning department has copies of all of these reports. So especially for you, Counselor, if you want to go and access this information and look at the reports, it's available, it's public record, it's there. So, just wanted to add that.
Yes, but before you go, some of the historical reports had confidential, do not share, because of the archaeological potential.
In case they're worried about people coming and digging and taking artifacts. That's okay. I don't remember seeing that note on there, but I trust that you've read that but I think there's executive summaries or pieces of it that you could share. I think particularly important with the Native American piece, and that, based on his experience, it typically needs to be closer to a waterway. And this is so far away from a waterway that the chances are unlikely. I'm not going to say that it's non-existent, but the chances are not very high.
Well, that answers my questions. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Go ahead, Donna. I'm sorry, everybody, that I had to jump off, but.
So the studies that were already done are public record? Are you saying that anyone could go and take a look? And there's one thing that they were talking about, people were talking about at the city council meeting, was whether there was some kind of a hospital or something where people were ill and they thought that there might be a burial ground related to that property. Anybody know anything about that?
So like Jessica just said, the initial historical research and investigation did not show that was the case. There were no historical documents indicating that people were buried there. The town does still own a couple of city cemeteries. So it seems unlikely to me that they would have chosen to bury folks on that property when there were other city locations where there were actually burial grounds. But yes, they are public record, with the exception of the confidential things that, we'd have to look at that under public records request. But
at a minimum, you could take a look at our quarterly reports. We filed a report every quarter to CPA that detailed all of the work that we were doing under that CPA grant. And those were part of the meeting packets, I think. I don't even know. So if, at a minimum, you could take a look at our quarterly reports that provide a quarterly update on what we were doing at Town Lodging. So.
Yeah, it just seems funny that people were very emotional about it at the meeting, and it was, but from what you're saying now, this has been going on for some time already. Were folks not aware of this, or?
That's not uncommon, Donna, that somebody puts a bee in the bonnet of neighbors when they learn about a project and sort of stirs the pot. And I suspect that might be what happened.
Also, just to note, Valley, typically our process is we like to actually do an abutters meeting before we get too far down the line. And wishing that we had done that, even though this project was kind of so up in the air in a lot of ways. But our typical process is we pull out a butters list of 300 feet. We send everybody a postcard. We have an online Zoom meeting. We let people sort of air their concerns and grievances right off the bat, let them get it off their chest. And we just sit and listen. And then we often will have individual meetings with the butters. For this project I'm currently working on in North Amherst, I've had 17 community meetings, either individually with the butters or with neighborhood groups or attending neighborhood picnics or whatever. So, we really pride ourselves at Valley by doing a bang up job on community engagement before we ever get too far. We may be getting to the point right now, given where things are at, that we may need to step forward even without knowing really what's happening on the site. So without having the actual report or actual information, we don't know if this project's going to move forward, but we may need to go ahead and do that just to ease concerns and let people have a place that they can speak to us.
And it's probably going to be this meeting on Monday, the 4th. So hopefully that's a good segue and a plug for showing up to the meeting on Monday at 5. Hopefully everyone can make it and show a little bit of support for this project. It's just it's going to be a tough meeting, I think. Otherwise.
I don't think did we know about the meeting that happened? Was it last week? It might have been in my email and I missed it. I didn't know it was happening until I heard about it from Connie Denham afterward.
Yeah, I don't think there was much outreach on it. It was a CPA request. There was a bunch of discussion at CPA. It went to finance subcommittee. There was not much discussion, and then all of a sudden this came out of it was funds that were already approved for matching funds for the UPP grant. It was not supposed to be this like big controversial thing, and then like you said, Jackie, it got stirred up.
Yeah. And so now it's stirred up, right? So like now we need to make sure we show up. I didn't watch the entire city council meeting yet. I think Tom Peake needed some support, and I felt bad that I don't think he expected this to happen, and it didn't seem like he was ready to. There were a lot of questions that he couldn't answer. So I hope going forward that when they're going to schedule the public hearing, they make sure that everybody who needs to be there to answer the questions can be there. Because I think a lot of it was because nobody from Valley was there. Jamie, you weren't there. Jeff wasn't there. There wasn't anybody who could. I think Councillor Peake did as good of a job as he could, but I think there were a lot of things that came up that he was like, this isn't what the request is for. I don't know what to do about that question. I'm just trying to present the thing that was presented to us, right? So I think, yeah.
Well, and I think
to hear what people are worried about, right? Because as this project goes forward, we're going to hear it again. So,
and in the end, it was supported, and I think that the city council clearly made the point that we can't do anything until we do this. So we don't even know what's possible until we complete this report. And I think that seemed to, help people understand and sort of get back a little bit to what it was that was really being asked at the meeting.
Yeah, and we have a lot. Easthampton has a lot going on. There's a lot of affordable housing stuff happening. And historically, for the partnership, the town lodging house has been a big priority, both when it was being operated by SMOC and we wanted to see it, the capital improvements made. And now that we actually have some traction on having those improvements made and having it be a viable project. So I guess I just want to take the temperature of the group, that we still feel like we have the bandwidth to have this be one of our priorities and to be able to attend these meetings, because we have a lot of other stuff happening. But I think we need to make sure, I mean, I guess I want to get consensus that we still think that this is an important project that we want to stay on top of.
Well, and
Yes.
can I just ask, after this next CDBG application, when is the next time that they're going to need our support?
That's a great question.
So, assuming we get funded, we'll get the grant announcement sometime in July or August. And then we'd start moving forward with the designer selection, if that hasn't already taken place. Hopefully by then, the archaeological work is done and we know whether or not we can proceed with the addition. Assuming that we can proceed with the addition, the city and valley will have some sort of property transfer agreement or agreement to do that in the future. And Valley will take out some pre-development loans to work on the design for the new building. So the next time this goes to city council will either be for the transfer of the property to Valley. And then at some point, this will need to go through probably a 40B application with the ZBA to get permitted for the additional units. So that would be sometime in maybe 25% design development. So it might be like a year out. There's a schedule that Jessica produced that's very detailed, and I don't have it I'm not looking at it at the moment. Maybe Jessica would know more specifically, but it's all sort of a little bit up in the air.
Okay, well, I mean, I just asked that because it just doesn't seem like that big of a lift in terms of the ask for us. So I totally would be down to support, to make this a priority.
Me too. I think it's it's such an important building to the city. The project is important. I'm going to put it in my calendar to stay in my office late on Monday and just join that meeting. It's at 5, Jamie, right?
Yeah, it's at 5. It's all remote. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing we still want to keep it on our radar. I will try to come on Monday also. And yeah, I mean, this is like all affordable housing, right? This is like the long road. So there's lots of things that have to happen before we even get to the 40B phase. So, and I encourage you all, if you haven't, to watch this. I'm going to finish watching it, but to watch it, just I do think that knowing what the concerns are make us more prepared for how we can advocate and what kind of information and education we can provide. All right, because I jumped off for a few minutes, did we talk about the letter yet or no? Okay, so let's circle back to the letter that I drafted for the city's CDBG application for this project. I just wanted to make sure, did anyone else have any comments or edits before we vote to approve it, and then I could sign it and give it to Jamie? Do you want me to, does everyone have it? Do you want me to pull it up? Oh, Jamie's pulling it up. It's very similar to another letter that I wrote for something from the town lodging. So I didn't change, I only changed a few things.
It looked good to me when I read it.
Yeah, it looks good. Yep.
I'm just reading it
Okay.
right now, so hold on a sec.
Okay. Jackie's usually my editor.
I don't have a vote yet.
Well, if you had any comments on it, you could still share them.
No, I think it looks good.
So I guess we'll give everyone a second to read, but I make a motion to approve the sending of the letter as written here.
Second on that.
Okay.
Looks good.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. I will get that signed and over to you, Jamie, tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else on town lodging that we want to talk about before we move on? Great. All right. So back to our continued discussion of
Do we have to approve
zoning.
minutes?
Oh yeah, thank you. We had held off on that because Jackie wasn't here. January meeting minutes. There was one correction which Jackie made. Does anyone else have any other comments?
I just had one comment in that I think you mentioned putting my change, like combining my changes with Ben's, but I don't think you included a list of the changes.
No, I thought that it was sort of, yeah. I think what I need to do is actually just take out Ben's, like, I don't know if I had it. I don't think I broke it out afterwards, like when I was taking the notes. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think what you were talking about is kind of in there already. So maybe if we propose, hold on, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to make a quick change now and send it out again. And then, did you already, you didn't submit them yet to Barb, did you?
I am not allowed to do that until we approve them.
Awesome.
In which case I always forget and that I send her like 6 months worth at a time because I never remember to do it.
So I think, let me just see. Chaim, do you have it in front of you at all?
Yeah.
Well, let me just, what did I add in section 3? Chaim suggests, because the thing that you were adding that was different that we wanted to consider was about lot sizes.
Yeah.
All right.
And yeah, I don't think it needs to be too specific, but just like mentioning that we also talked about that there would be good. Everything else looked good though to me.
Okay. So let me just make a quick change here and then I can't share my screen, right? Jenna, what if I send them to you? Can you share?
I can, hold on. I can do something to make it so you can share the screen, I think. Did I make you a co-host?
You did. Let me just type this right. Let me see. Lot sizes. You suggested changes in lot size for the zoning in those districts that don't have duplexes allowed by right, yes?
Yeah, but I think just across the board as well.
Okay. Changes in lot size for...
Yeah, I think Chaim also talked about mixed use, or adding, small, corner stores kind of thing, right?
Yep, I remember that. I think I captured that in some of the questions.
Yeah, that was in there somewhere.
Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen. I can figure out how to do that. Oh, that's a pain.
There's a weird little arrow in a box at the bottom.
Yeah, and then it's asking, hold on. Let's see if this works. All right. Can't share screen.
Oh, why?
I think because I'm on a Mac. And it's just being...
Mac and Google just like
they don't like each other.
Yeah, some security settings.
Yep. So I'm just going to send it to you, Jenna, if that's okay.
Yeah, it's fine.
Thanks for your patience, everyone, and for your comments and feedback. That always happens. I do the minutes and I'm like, I'm not sure this is entirely right. It's mostly right. Mostly right's not enough.
Well, and not that you have put like all this time on your hands, but like I do, when that happens to me, I do sometimes go back and watch it, because then you're like, oh.
That's because you weren't doing it yesterday morning at
Well,
7.
I'm just like, I know. I'm not saying that I always have time to go back and watch it.
Yeah. Okay. I just sent you, Jana,
All right.
the changes. And then you can share them.
Then I'll share them as soon as I get them.
So yeah, and then we can talk about whether it makes sense to do more reviews of things. That's our next. I'll wait till you're done.
All right, hold on. Put it on. Share my screen. Oh wait, hold on. I have 2 versions of that open. That's not helpful.
So the only changes I made are under number 3, discussion of potential zoning amendments and review of current zoning. I took Ben's name out of that first bullet point.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Can I see you?
Yes.
Where are you? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Then I added, so if you scroll a little tiny bit more down. So I just took, Ben's name was attached to that first bullet under 3. And I
Okay.
took it out so it's not just Ben's, and then I put some other things at the very end. The last bullet is Chaim's suggestions.
Presenting on Google Meet is super weird. Because I can see it in the thing, but then I have to scroll on the document. All right, anyway, can everybody see it? All right. Does it look correct?
Yeah.
Does that work better, Chaim?
Yeah, it looks good to me.
Okay.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve the January minutes?
I will make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. All those in favor?
Yep.
Aye. Yep.
Aye. Great. All right. I'm going to stop presenting.
Here, I have to switch laptops quickly. I will be back on in like 30 seconds, I promise.
Okay.
Sorry. It's been a struggle today.
All right. It happened to me too.
Yeah.
Okay. January meeting minutes approved. What else is on our agenda? Okay. So back to our discussion of potential zoning. So in the minutes that we just approved, it said that Jamie was going to combine these 2 things into one document, which Jamie has not yet done because Jamie's a very busy person. So I'm going, yeah, go ahead. I'm going to propose that we table that until next meeting. But Jamie, I don't know do you feel like you can combine them into one document? Like, do you need help with that?
I can do it. When our next meeting is the 28th, which is a few days after the block grants due. So I will have some time to work on this that week.
Okay.
Of our next meeting.
Okay. Speaking of that, so I have to go to Boston that day, which like who has in-person meetings in Boston? That sounds terrible. I'm very unhappy about it until 4. Now I am slightly hoping I don't have to go and/or it's going to get out earlier than 4, but could we meet? I don't want to change the meeting. And if not, I'll just be in my car talking to you, or could we meet slightly later? I know that's problematic for some people, but I'm just a little bit concerned that I might not be back in Easthampton by 6. Which you could also meet without me.
Starting later.
You're always
No, we
happy
can
to start
start
later.
I'm always late.
Yeah. I know, Jamie, you have something, right? After this?
Yeah, I try to make it to practice. And it is what it is. So, although if it's later, then I'll end up missing practice, but that's fine.
Sorry. I hate to ask you to
Can
do
you
that.
remind me what day we're talking about?
It's our next meeting, which is Thursday, March 28th.
Okay.
If we could move it to 7, I would feel much better about being back, or even 6:30. I could do 6:30. What would people prefer? Jackie made a face when I said 7.
I was just thinking about Jamie and her roller derby and wanting to get her to roller derby.
Definitely miss
That's what keeps her happy and sane.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna even. It's hard actually. Even having them at 6, with the travel times, it's unless it's a remote meeting, in which case I can do it, in the parking lot, and then when the meeting ends, I can just walk out to the parking lot. But I mean, schedule it, and I'll make it work.
Well, let's bump it to 6:30, and then it's not too late, because I know 7 feels also kind of late for those of us who don't like.
We'll try not to be long-winded.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to bump it to 6:30. I will let Barbara know. I will remember. I'm going to move it on my calendar so I don't forget. All right.
And that's March 28th.
March 28th, Thursday, March 28th. All right. So circling back. So Jamie will try to combine those two into one document for us to look at for that meeting. So we can table that portion until then. So Shira's not here to talk about her section. Jackie, it sounds like you and Lindsay did meet, because Lindsay sent me an email. Do you want to talk about your piece next?
I'm going to go look at the email Lindsay sent, remind myself of what we talked about. Is that terrible or what?
Oh,
let's see.
Reality.
Do you want to talk about your part first?
I can. Yeah, I want me to. And my part, I kind of need some input on. So let me look back up my notes. Okay. So my part was about community character, right? So the zoning mentions some type of reference to community character 25 times. And incredibly inconsistently. So, sometimes it uses the term community character. Sometimes it uses another term. I should open it. And so I'm looking for some feedback, because I feel like we could go 2 ways, right? We could propose to eliminate all references to it and just get rid of it, or we could define it. I mean, I think part of the problem is it's not defined as anything most of the time, and so it's very subjective, because it's just up to like whatever people are interpreting it to mean. So let me find it just for a second so I can give you some examples. So, so there's terms like residential character of the neighborhood, family character, single family character, district character. I didn't pull up, I highlighted them. Visual character of the city of Easthampton, scenic character. So it uses all these different terms, and some of them are relevant, like sort of, and some of them aren't. And to me, like, I feel like if we're talking about architectural character, then we should use the term architectural character, right? Like if it's about like, what does the building physically look like? And does it physically look like the building next to it? Like that could be one discussion, rather than things that seem like To create affordable housing that is consistent with the character of Easthampton's existing neighborhoods is in the, what did I just do? My computer's mad at me. Did I just close it? Go ahead, Kyle.
I don't know where I saw this, but on first reaction, I love the idea of like defining community character, because and like I said, I don't know where I found this, but I've heard community character or like defined as, you know, a New England village, like planning, land use planning, and like single family homes, and like it was very clear about like open space and single family homes and keeping like the provincial, like New England colonial character thing. And that I like very much shy away from, or don't love. So I like the idea of like setting a new definition. But I also don't know if anyone else has heard a similar definition.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like, yeah, it's I don't know. I think the way it's used, it's in different contexts, like with it, because I was just looking at it in the zoning bylaw too, it might be hard to come up with a definition that really fits each of the contexts. And frankly, I think too, the people who are like quote unquote weaponizing, you know, the term community character and bringing it up at community meetings and stuff aren't going to be the ones poring over the zoning bylaw and looking at the definition and saying it, it really doesn't mean what I think it does. But so we could try to define it for instances where we keep it, but I agree, I guess, maybe with the way Jenna was leaning in terms of like maybe finding different words for it or removing it altogether. Because I think the way it tends to be, I'm going to use the word weaponized again, the way it tends to be, weaponized is usually against density, I feel like. Sometimes in terms of architecture, I feel like, but I feel like it gets into, especially when it talks about single family character of a neighborhood, it's like if the zoning allows for more than single family neighborhoods or single family homes, then why is that in there to begin with? So stuff like that, where, scenic character, you can say, oh, well, there shouldn't be, high density area if it says scenic character. So like, yeah, maybe it just should be taken out in a lot of places in general, or defined better if we do need to keep the word in there. But I will say, I agree if it's someone's proposing like a Starbucks in the middle of a neighborhood or something, not that would be allowed by zoning, but like there are instances where, you do want to maintain residential character but zoning should take care of that for the most part, I feel like. So.
And I feel like, I think we think of ourselves as this like historic, quaint little village, right? But like, not necessarily true. And I feel like sometimes if you define things too much, then it constrains you from actually like moving ahead with the times, right? So even if we look at the renderings for the 385 Main Street units, to me, those buildings are kind of modern looking. I don't think they look bad, and I don't think they look like they don't belong, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they like fit into a historic character look, right? So, but I feel like that's how things progress, right? Like we're not always going to look the same, and we might look differently 50 years from now than we look now. And we want zoning to be able to be flexible enough that we're not like containing ourselves to. So I think what I'll propose, because I don't want to burden us with this, what I think I'll do is I'm going to make a chart of where everywhere it exists, and then have suggestions of either like we just take it out because we don't need it in this section, or we better define it. Like this section, planned unit residential development for affordable housing, 8.63, maintain and replicate the traditional New England rural character and land use pattern in which small villages are adjacent to common space. Maybe this is a bad example because I don't like to know what it's talking about. But like some of these, I just feel like it's just in there.
I think that's what I was talking about.
Yeah. Some of it's just, this one is about, there was one about businesses. Development in the downtown business district shall consider the preservation and reuse of existing buildings in order to maintain the historic character and mix of uses in the district. It could just say, shall consider the preservation and reuse of existing buildings. Like it doesn't have to get into, this is just my proposal. You all can, it doesn't have to be that specific. So I'll make a chart and be able to provide you guys with some suggestions, and then we can talk about it more. And you can look at it more. But in some cases, it might make sense to keep it, and in some cases, maybe it's just too many words. Go ahead, Jeff.
Just to throw a couple of ideas at you all. So one, I would look to see if that PUD for affordable housing has ever been used.
Yeah.
Before you go ahead and start amending it. Because if it's never been used in the, 20 plus years it's been on the books, then there's an issue just there. And then in terms of preserving buildings, I think developers try to do that the best that they can, but it's not always the most cost-effective thing to do. And so sometimes a developer may need to take down a building that has structural integrity issues, and then we'll rebuild something in its place. So, just wanted to make that comment.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Okay, so I'll work on that. Jackie, did you read the email? Remind yourself what you discussed.
So our section was to look at any potential fair housing violations. And the only thing we saw that seemed like it might go in that direction was this idea that when we are building something with affordable housing that has a selection process, the whole idea that there needs to be local preference in that process, that feels like it violates that. But there was only one reference to it. And frankly, the mass fair housing guidelines don't really, they're very specific around how you can use preference. So I don't think it's an actual issue for the zoning, because you can't, like the whole idea. So back in the day, because, Janet and I have been doing this for a long time, whenever there was a housing like Parsons Village, right? Folks would be like, well, you have to have preference for Easthampton residents. And we would go around and round about that because that really is exclusionary as well. But there is already in the housing marketing and resident selection plan guidelines from the state, there's already language around when and where you can use any kind of preference. So that sort of takes care of that issue, I think, already. Unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, Jess, I feel like you had a comment about this last time and I don't remember what it was. So go ahead.
Yeah, there's some language in there somewhere that had actually to do with like, it was like homeownership, affordable homeownership. And it was like, they have to have use a certain mortgage or put a certain percentage down for their closing costs. There was something weird in there that was very specific to the selection of the tenant. And I'll go dig for it now and see if I can put my fingers on it. But it was something very specific about how somebody was going to finance their purchase, which I feel like the city needs to keep their nose out of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let me go dig right now and see if I can
I
find
can
it.
see Jamie is also digging.
I remember the,
Yeah.
it's 8.344. Target population for affordable housing units. Selection for qualified buyers for the affordable unit shall be administered, blah, 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 blah. Priority considerations shall be given to households not currently owning a home. Like, there's no reason for that to be in there.
I think we actually did look at that. That sounds familiar.
I think that, I think to your earlier point, like some of this is dictated by the funding entity for the project. So I don't really know why it's in the zoning, because if it's a specific type of affordable housing development, that's going to dictate how the resale is done, how what the deed restriction says, those families shall be notified, shall have the exclusive right to contract for a period of 6 days. Some of this stuff is like very specific and could change with the state's requirements. So I just wonder if any of it's actually even necessary, if it just says something like it will be in accordance with the guidelines for the, funding of the property. Seems like we overdid it in here. But I don't know if it's hurting anything. It just feels like it's making it unnecessary.
I guess I would add that everywhere I've seen these apply, with the exception of the Tasty Top property, it's been a 40B project, and the developer has always asked for waivers to these things and replaced it with we are proposing a 50% priority for Easthampton as opposed to 70%, or we're proposing this other thing, and they're always granted. So You're right. And so maybe just flagging it as to discuss and to be removed.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I just want to say that 40B is not the ideal road for a developer. It adds an additional year. I'm not kidding. An additional year to the permitting process, because you have to apply for a project eligibility letter, which can take several months to pull together the application. And then it takes the state several months to review it. And then there's a site visit by the municipality. And then there's a public comment period. And then they finally get the letter. And you cannot apply for a 40B permit until you have that letter in hand. So going 40B it just adds cost to the project. So if people are concerned about the cost to build affordable housing, you don't want to add another year of permitting to it. Okay. So it's all well and good that, that's the route that unfortunately a lot of us have to take to get the zoning waivers. But I would advocate for the city to just fix the zoning so that a developer doesn't have to go through that process.
Yes, I completely agree. I just was, I completely agree. I just pointing
That's
out.
Good, because I've heard other statements from planning people.
So I think though that we should mark this up and figure out how it can be amended.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Jamie, were you implying that this section was used for the Tasty Top property, as somewhat as written, or?
I honestly was so far removed from the planning board process. I could not tell you how it was specifically used or not.
Or no, was that a 40R zone?
It was 40R, and it was also it used the smart growth. It used our highway business, and I think there was some R10, R15 land in there. It was a mismatch of things.
Gotcha.
But 385 Main Street will be a 40B. The schools will probably be a 40B, I think.
I think multifamily is allowed by right now in the downtown.
Oh, so maybe not.
And they're not building new, there's not multiple structures on a lot, so they won't be forced to go the special permit route.
Okay, so maybe, yeah, okay.
They might just only have a site plan approval.
Nice.
That'd be great.
I had a thought while we're talking about fair housing violations. In the definitions section, we define a family. And it's a number of individuals related by blood, marriage, and or adoption, or a group of unrelated individuals not to exceed 4 who are occupying a dwelling unit and living as a single nonprofit housekeeping unit. This definition, however, does not apply to non-related disabled persons as defined by any applicable federal and or state law and or regulations. I don't know how that ties into fair housing, but I think defining what a family is under zoning is complicated at best.
Well, and I wonder, where is it even used? Like,
well, because we talk about single family zoning. And so a single family house can only have, under this definition, you could have any number of people who are related by blood, marriage, or adoption. But like, if you have some sort of family unit that's not in that manner, theoretically you could get someone, your neighbor could issue a complaint to the zoning inspector, so the building commissioner, and you could be kicked out of your house for violating the number of unrelated people living together.
I'm wondering, you probably don't know the answer, like when this was added. Because the cap on 4 feels like, did this happen in Amherst? Like there they capped, like it had to do, or maybe it was like someplace in Boston, but like college communities that have a lot of college students, I feel like tried to make a definition that had to do with how many unrelated people could live in a unit together. So you couldn't have 10 college students living in one unit.
Amherst has that in there. So if you're renting, you can't have more than 3 unrelated people in a unit in Amherst. That's a thing.
Is that irrespective of how many bedrooms there are? I mean, that was the thing. That was the thing in Boston and Alston.
That's what it was, Alston. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
And it also has both racist and like anti-immigrant connotations, because a lot of, I think it's, is primarily, I'm guessing, we have it because of anti-immigrant bias. So if you can.
An anti-college student bias.
Well, we don't really have that many college students here.
Not here, but in Amherst, that's right. Definitely what it is.
Well, that's why I was asking like why we picked 4, because we don't have a huge college student population. So like, well, can we just strike it? Can you just get rid of the definition of family? I agree with you, Jamie, that I feel like it's a white definition, right? It's not taking into consideration different cultures or immigrant populations, or it's just very. But what if we just deleted it?
Well, but if you delete it, then we look to like Webster's dictionary for defining what a family is. So if it says like anywhere we say single family, if we don't define what single family means, then we're looking at the dictionary definition or
oh, go ahead, Donna.
Well, can't the definition of a single family be related to, rather than the people who are living in the building itself? So there's one kitchen, one bathroom, X number of bedrooms, rather than
we're not under that's a building code issue. Zoning cannot regulate the number of kitchens and bathrooms and bedrooms, the interior makeup of a building.
But can't you say if there's 2 kitchens, that's a 2 family?
No.
Okay.
It's only a 2 family if it's separation, full separate housekeeping units. So separate sanitary, separate kitchen, separate bedrooms.
Okay, but that seems like you're saying there is a definition of a single family unit.
But we can't change it. And if you have a house that has 2 kitchens and 15 bathrooms, but only 1 main entrance and 1 main exit, and it's all this connected interior space, that's a single family house.
Uh-huh.
So what if the language that says something like related by blood, marriage, and or adoption of blah 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 blah, like that is familiar to me from like my old days of like affordable housing marketing plans. But what if it's because the board of health, there's I'm mixing this all up in my head, but like, are there rule restrictions on like how many people? Does the Board of Health have restrictions about how many people can live in a unit, in a dwelling, any dwelling unit? Not really.
I don't know.
It just seems like we should just not be. Can we just take out the? I don't know. I feel like we need to do something about this.
I'd like to just mark it for further discussion, and maybe. If someone has a chance to look at, because I know that this is not something that's unique to Easthampton. It's been discussed across the state in terms of fair housing. I know a lot of communities have dealt with this in creative ways to define it, redefine it, and make it more acceptable to while still trying to meet the needs of zoning. And so,
can I make a suggestion? I will go back through and look at this stuff too, because I clearly missed some things. So maybe we just pause on the fair housing stuff for now. And kind of go through it again. If anybody else notices places where we missed things, Jamie, is it possible to put something out on like the planner's listserv, asking how other communities are defining single family? Whatever, because that would be great to get some other examples.
Yeah, I can do that.
That'd be awesome. Thank you. But I'll go look for the piece that Jess was talking about too, where it specified how one could purchase their house, because clearly we missed some stuff. So my homework is not done.
This is a process, right?
Yeah.
We weren't going to finish this in 2 meetings.
Nope.
Sure.
I was going to offer something quickly. Just looking at the definitions here. So yeah, family is defined, but so is duplex and dwelling. So duplex, is a structure on a single lot containing 2 dwelling units, and then dwelling is defined. So I'm wondering if we could almost just get away from the family idea instead do single dwelling, duplex, or something like that. Because there's even a definition for it's dwelling, comma, single family, a structure containing 1 dwelling unit. So if that's possible, which I don't know if it is, it would get away from prescribing like the number and relations of people who are living there altogether, and instead just talk about the building itself, which I feel like is more appropriate for zoning. But I'd be curious if other cities and towns have done that.
I think that's what I was trying to get at. Much less artfully than you just did.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a balance between, you don't want to get into the number of bathrooms and kitchens and stuff like that, but or into the building code, but I don't know. Maybe there's a way to do it that way.
Well, it also does seem like there are a lot of young people that are single, but that want to own property, but the only way that they can really do that is if they do that with someone else. And so to say that they have to be a family unit in order to do that seems a little unfair. It's a contractual relationship, not necessarily.
And it's not really enforceable unless like you're neighbor rats you out, right? I'm sure we have people living in the city who are more than 4 people that are not related by blood, marriage, or adoption.
There was a big court case a few years ago about a mansion in Connecticut that was bought by like 10, it was like 5 couples, and they violated this section of their ordinance, and they got kicked out. It went through the whole courts based on them violating their zoning there.
They must have pissed somebody off.
Yeah.
That's all I can think. Like, how do whose business is that?
Yeah.
All right. It's 7:15, and I know there's some folks that need to hop off soon. So, but I think we're in a good spot. So I think we're gonna come back to Kayam and Ben's suggestions next time. I'm gonna work on the chart on character. Jackie and Lindsay are gonna go back and look and continue working on the fair housing piece. We're all gonna think about this family definition so we can talk about it next time and do a little bit of research and see what else we can find out there from other cities and towns.
What was Shira working on? Something else.
Something else that I don't remember. Parking? I don't have the list in front of me, but we'll get back to, yes, and we'll get back to Shira's homework also when she's back with us. All right, does that sound like a good plan? Okay, yeah. Thanks everybody. We have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All right, meeting is adjourned at 7:15.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.